Maya Williams stared out the window of her bedroom, the vast expanse of the sky stretching before her like an endless canvas. It was dusk, and the stars had begun to twinkle, one by one, like tiny diamonds scattered across the heavens. Maya loved this time of day. The moment when the world seemed to pause, just before the darkness of night took over. It was in these moments that she felt closest to her dream. Since she could remember, Maya had been fascinated by space. She could spend hours reading about distant planets, black holes, and the stars that burned bright millions of miles away. Her bookshelf was lined with books on astronomy, space travel, and the lives of astronauts who made history. She'd watched countless documentaries, memorized the names of planets and constellations, and imagined what it would be like to float in the weightless void of space. At 12 years old, Maya was already certain of one thing: she was going to be an astronaut. Her mother, Dr. Angela Williams, worked at NASA as a research scientist. Maya didn't know all the specifics of her mother's job. Angela was careful to keep work and home life separate, but Maya had always admired the way her mother spoke with quiet confidence about her work. She knew that her mother had a role in something big, something important, and she was proud of her. There were nights when Maya would ask her mom questions about space, and Angela would smile, her eyes lighting up as she explained the science behind the missions she worked on. Maya cherished those moments. They felt like a glimpse into a world she longed to be a part of. Her father, Mr. Thomas Williams, was a local high school teacher. He was warm, supportive, and endlessly encouraging, always telling Maya to dream big. But he also reminded her to be practical, to focus on the steps needed to make those dreams a reality. He was the one who taught her how to break down big goals into smaller, manageable tasks. He made sure she knew that while dreaming was important, hard work and persistence were what would make those dreams come true. Yet, despite all the encouragement from her family, Maya still often found herself questioning whether her dream was too far out of reach. Space was, after all, a place that felt so distant from her, so far removed from her life in their small suburban town. Would she really be able to do it? Could someone like her, someone from a small, everyday family, actually become an astronaut? She was determined to find out. And so, when the announcement came about career day at her school, Maya knew exactly what she wanted to do. She would stand in front of her classmates and tell them about her dream. She would explain her passion for space, her goals, and the steps she had already started taking to make them a reality. Career day arrived, and Maya's heart was pounding in her chest. She had practiced her presentation for weeks, rehearsing in front of the mirror, adjusting the slides on her PowerPoint, and making sure she could answer any questions that might come her way. She was ready. Her classmates had gathered in the school's gymnasium, some standing in front of their tables with posters about careers in teaching, law enforcement, medicine, and even a few who dreamed of becoming professional athletes. But Maya didn't care about what anyone else was doing. This was her moment. She stepped up to the podium and took a deep breath. Her eyes scanned the crowd of her classmates, some smiling at her with encouraging expressions, while others just stared, uninterested. Mrs. Peterson, her teacher, stood in the back of the room, arms crossed, a skeptical look on her face. Maya pushed her nerves down and began. "Good morning, everyone. My name is Maya Williams, and today I'm here to talk to you about space exploration and my dream of becoming an astronaut." She launched into her presentation, explaining the history of space travel, the current missions being conducted, and what an astronaut's life was like. She talked about the future of space exploration, the possibility of missions to Mars, and how she planned to work hard, study aerospace engineering, and apply to NASA's astronaut program one day. I know it's a long road, Maya said, smiling at her classmates, but it's worth it. I want to see the stars up close. I want to float in space. I want to be a part of something that pushes the boundaries of what we know. For a moment, the room was silent. Some of her classmates looked intrigued, others were clearly not paying attention, but Maya didn't let that stop her. She was on fire, fueled by her passion. She had prepared for this moment, and now, in front of them all, she was making her dream known. But then Mrs. Peterson spoke. Her voice was dismissive, almost mocking. "Well," she said, her tone cutting through the air like a knife, "how nice to have big dreams. But, Maya, space is just for people who are, well, not like us." The class laughed. Maya's face flushed, her stomach dropped, and her words stuck in her throat. Mrs. Peterson had always been critical, but this felt different. Her comment wasn't just a critique of Maya's dream, it was a judgment. Maya stood frozen, her heart pounding. The laughter continued, echoing in her ears, and for the first time, she felt the weight of her dream like never before. Was space really just for people who were not like us? Her confidence wavered, and doubt crept into her mind. Maybe she wasn't cut out for this. Maybe people like her didn't belong in space. Maybe this dream was just too big, too impossible. The rest of the presentation passed in a blur. Maya could barely focus on her words, her mind spinning. She wanted to say something, defend herself, but her voice felt small, swallowed by the room's laughter and Mrs. Peterson's cutting remark. As she finished and walked back to her seat, she couldn't shake the feeling of humiliation that clung to her like a second skin. That night, when Maya got home, she sat on her bed, staring at the stars outside her window. She could almost hear her mom's voice in her head, telling her that anything was possible if she worked for it. But tonight, the words felt hollow. The laughter still rang in her ears, and she wondered, for the first time, if her dream was too far-fetched. Was she reaching for something that didn't belong to people like her? Her father's voice broke through her thoughts. "Hey, Maya," he called from the kitchen. "Dinner's ready." Maya didn't answer at first. She just sat there, staring out at the vastness of the sky, her mind a swirl of confusion and doubt. Her father came into the room, sitting beside her on the bed. "What's going on, kiddo?" Maya swallowed hard, trying to find the words. "I don't know, Dad. I thought I could do it. I thought I could become an astronaut, but today Mrs. Peterson said some stuff, and now I'm not so sure." Her father's expression softened. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I know it's tough. People are gonna say things. Sometimes, they're gonna tell you your dreams are too big, or too impossible. But you've gotta remember one thing, your dreams are yours. No one can take that from you." Maya looked at him, the weight of his words slowly sinking in. Maybe the world wasn't ready for her dream, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that she was. "Dream big, kiddo," her father said with a smile. "The stars are waiting for you." And for the first time that day, Maya felt a flicker of hope in her heart. Maybe her dream was big, but it was hers, and she wasn't going to let anyone tell her it was out of reach. Maya sat at the kitchen table, her homework spread out before her, but her mind was elsewhere. The math problems, the equations, the pages of notes, all of it seemed distant, like they belonged to someone else. Her once bright enthusiasm for science had dimmed, and no amount of effort seemed to bring it back. She couldn't focus. Not since that day in class. The words echoed in her mind like an endless loop. Are you sure you want to be an astronaut, Maya? Maybe you'd be better suited for something a little less ambitious. It had been a simple comment from Miss Turner, a well-meaning but misguided attempt at humor, but it felt like a dagger through Maya's chest. The laughter of her classmates that followed made her stomach churn. It wasn't just the teacher's words. It was the way her classmates had snickered, the way their eyes had darted to each other as if Maya's dream was something to be laughed at, not supported. Her classmates were supposed to be her peers, people she could trust, but now she felt exposed, vulnerable, and alone. No one had ever told her that the world would be so unforgiving, that the things she wanted most, those lofty, impossible dreams, would be met with mockery. Maya hadn't heard her mother's voice call out to her from the living room. She hadn't noticed her mom standing at the doorway, watching her, concern in her eyes. Maya, you all right? Her mother's voice was soft, but Maya didn't answer immediately. She didn't feel like talking. She didn't feel like explaining how her world had shifted in an instant. Her mother stepped closer, her presence warm but faintly uncertain. You've been quiet, she said, a gentle hint of worry in her tone. Everything okay at school? Maya pressed her lips together, determined not to let her mom see the cracks. Her mother had always been her biggest supporter, sharing stories of her own time at NASA, showing Maya that hard work and perseverance could take you anywhere. But now, with everything that had happened, Maya couldn't bring herself to voice her doubts. She couldn't risk shattering the image her mom had of her. Maya had always been the girl with the dream, the one who never gave up, the one who believed she could reach the stars. What would her mom think if she admitted that maybe she was wrong, that maybe she didn't belong in the world of space exploration? Just tired, Maya finally muttered, her voice low. She turned the page of her textbook, her eyes skimming the words without truly reading them. School's fine. Her mother watched her for a moment longer, but she didn't push. Maya's mother had learned long ago not to force her daughter to open up when she wasn't ready. Instead, she pulled up a chair beside her and sat down, reaching over to touch Maya's hand gently. You know, when I first started at NASA, her mother said softly, I was terrified. I didn't think I could do it. There were so many people telling me I wasn't cut out for it. But I didn't let that stop me. I kept going, and eventually, I found my place. You've got that same fire, Maya. You've always had it. Maya's gaze flickered up to her mother, but she didn't say anything. The warmth of her mother's words was comforting, but it didn't reach the part of her that needed reassurance. It didn't stop the feeling that her dreams were slipping away from her, that her once clear path was now clouded with doubt. Her mother squeezed her hand before standing up. You know where to find me if you need me, she said quietly, before walking away. Maya didn't answer. She wasn't sure she had the words to explain how she was feeling. The next day at school, Maya couldn't shake the memory of Miss Turner's words. Her grades in science, once her strength, had begun to slip. She couldn't focus in class, couldn't bring herself to participate like she used to. The fear of being ridiculed kept her silent, kept her small. She didn't raise her hand when the teacher asked questions, didn't make eye contact with her classmates, and tried to shrink into the background whenever possible. By lunchtime, she found herself sitting alone in the cafeteria, picking at her food while the noise of other students filled the air around her. A group of girls from her class walked by, laughing too loudly, their voices cutting through her thoughts like knives. Did you hear about Maya? One of them said, not even bothering to lower her voice. I don't get why she thinks she can be an astronaut. She's just different. Maya froze, her fork suspended in midair, her appetite gone. She kept her head down, not daring to look up. The words didn't hurt as much as they once would have. They were like static noise now, the background hum of a reality she couldn't escape. But still, the sting lingered. She didn't belong. At home that evening, Maya couldn't concentrate on her homework, and by the time her mother came into her room, it was almost dark outside. Maya had barely touched her assignments, and her notebook was scattered with doodles instead of equations. Maya, her mother's voice cut through the stillness of the room, what's going on? You haven't been yourself lately. Maya's fingers tightened around her pen, but she didn't look up. She didn't want to see the concern in her mother's eyes, didn't want to admit that she felt like a failure. That her dream, her biggest dream, was slipping away. It's nothing, Mom, Maya said quickly, but her voice faltered. She hated how easily the words came out, how quickly she deflected, how easily she pushed her mother away. Her mom sat down next to her, her presence steady and warm. You don't have to tell me everything, but I can tell something's bothering you. And I know it's not just schoolwork. If you ever want to talk about it, I'm here. Maya let out a shaky breath and leaned back in her chair. Her mother's kindness was too much, too kind for the dark thoughts swirling in Maya's head. She wished she could just let it out, tell her mom about the mockery, the way her dream felt so far out of reach. But what was the point? The whole world was telling her it wasn't realistic. Maybe it wasn't. I'm just tired, Maya said again, her voice cracking slightly. I don't know if I can do this anymore. Her mother's hand rested on her shoulder, and for a moment, Maya let herself sink into the comfort of it. Her mother didn't ask for more than Maya was ready to give. She didn't push. Instead, she just sat there, offering quiet support in the way only a mother could. You don't have to have all the answers right now, her mother said softly. Just take it one step at a time. Your dream is still there, Maya. You don't have to give it up just because it's hard. Maya nodded, though the doubt still lingered. She didn't know if she could keep going like this. But somewhere, deep down, a tiny spark of hope flickered. Maybe her dream wasn't as out of reach as it felt. Maybe, just maybe, if she could weather this storm, she would find her way back to it. For now, that was enough. That night, as she lay in bed, Maya thought about her mother's words, about the stories her mom had shared from her own time at NASA, the challenges she had faced and the resilience that had carried her through. It wasn't easy, Maya knew that now. But maybe the dream of becoming an astronaut wasn't meant to be easy. Maybe it was just meant to be worth fighting for. And for the first time in days, Maya didn't feel quite as alone in her struggle. Maya sat at her desk, staring at the page in front of her, the words from her science textbook blurring together. It was supposed to be an exciting subject, one that filled her with curiosity and wonder. But today, like so many others, it felt like a weight, an oppressive cloud hanging over her head. Mrs. Peterson's words from the last class still echoed in her mind. Maya, don't you think that's a bit of a stretch? Space exploration is a dream for people who have the resources, the connections, the right background. Don't get your hopes up, sweetie. Every syllable had struck like a hammer, chipping away at the foundation of confidence she had once built so carefully. What had once been a dream to venture into the stars now felt impossibly far away, a fantasy that didn't belong to someone like her. She ran her fingers over the cover of her notebook, the cool surface offering little comfort. The pages inside were filled with notes about space, about stars, about the galaxies she had spent hours researching. But now, even writing about it felt pointless. Was it foolish to even dream about something so out of reach? A sharp tap on her shoulder broke her thoughts. Maya. She turned to find her best friend, Lila, looking at her with concern in her eyes. Lila had been trying to talk to her for weeks, but Maya had been distant, preoccupied with the storm brewing inside her. Maya, what's going on? You've barely touched your book. You've barely touched anything since last week. And don't think I didn't notice you zoning out in class. What's up? Maya smiled weakly, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. I'm fine. Just tired. Lila wasn't convinced. Come on, you've been acting weird. I know you're upset about what Mrs. Peterson said, but you can't let her get to you. Maya didn't answer. She couldn't bring herself to tell Lila how deeply Mrs. Peterson's words had wounded her. That would make it real, and she wasn't sure she was ready to face it. I don't know if I can keep doing this, Lila. Maybe Mrs. Peterson is right. Maybe space isn't something for me. Lila's eyes widened in disbelief. Maya. That's not true. You're one of the smartest people I know. Mrs. Peterson doesn't get to define your future. She's just a teacher, one teacher. You've got so much potential. You can't let her make you doubt yourself. Maya looked away, feeling the weight of her friend's words, but still uncertain. It just feels like, it's all too big. Like maybe I'm just dreaming too big. Lila's expression softened, but her voice was firm. That's what people do when they're scared. They tell you your dreams are too big. But you're strong enough to go after them anyway. You have to be. You can't let one person, especially someone like Mrs. Peterson, get in the way of what you love. Maya nodded, but the seed of doubt had already been planted too deeply. She wasn't sure she could keep fighting against the tide that seemed to be pulling her under. The next day, as she walked into her science class, something felt different. Mrs. Peterson was at the front of the room, doing her usual routine, distributing assignments, moving quickly between students. But Maya's attention was focused on something else. A new face. The girl was sitting in the back of the room, scribbling furiously in a notebook. Her brown hair was pulled into a messy ponytail, and she wore a bright, oversized hoodie with an astronomy logo across the front. It wasn't just any hoodie, it was a constellation map of the night sky. Maya's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know why it mattered so much, why seeing someone else who shared her love for the stars could make her feel like a spark was igniting inside her again, but it did. As the bell rang, the new girl stood up, adjusting her backpack. Mrs. Peterson cleared her throat and smiled, though there was something a little too forced about it. Class, we have a new student today. This is Zoe. Let's all make her feel welcome. Zoe's eyes scanned the room, and when they landed on Maya, something in her expression softened. There was a warmth, a friendliness in the way she looked at Maya, and for the first time in weeks, Maya felt like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't so alone in this. After class, as students were packing up, Zoe approached Maya's desk, her voice light and excited. You're Maya, right? I saw your notebook earlier. Space stuff? I love space. It's like, all I ever think about. Maya's breath caught in her throat. She wasn't used to people being so open, so upfront about their interests. Especially about something as personal as her love for space. You all like space, too? Maya asked, the surprise evident in her voice. Zoe nodded enthusiastically, her eyes shining. Yeah. I want to be an astronaut. I've wanted to since I was little. My dad used to take me out to the desert when I was a kid, and we'd stargaze for hours. It was the best thing ever. Maya smiled, the weight on her chest suddenly lifting, if only just a little. I've always wanted to be an astronomer. Or an astronaut, too, I guess. But I don't know if it's realistic, you know? It's just a dream. Zoe cocked her head. Why wouldn't it be realistic? If you love it, you can do it. I mean, it's going to take work, but nothing worth having comes easy, right? And the universe doesn't care where you come from. You just have to go for it. Maya's heart beat a little faster. She hadn't realized how much she needed someone to say those words, how desperately she'd been yearning for someone who understood her passion, someone who wasn't trying to put limits on her dreams. Well, Maya said, trying to mask the sudden rush of hope in her voice, maybe we could talk more about it? I mean, if you want. I know a lot about stars and space, too, Zoe grinned. I'd love that. Maybe we can go to the planetarium this weekend? I know they're having a special event about black holes. You in? Maya's breath caught. A weekend trip to the planetarium? It felt like a dream. Something she hadn't dared to think about in so long. I'd love that, she said, the words slipping out before she even realized it. That weekend, Maya and Zoe met at the planetarium. As they sat in the dark, staring up at the stars projected on the ceiling, Maya felt a sense of wonder she hadn't experienced in so long. Zoe's enthusiasm was contagious, and they spent hours talking about their favorite constellations, their dream jobs, and all the ways they could explore space. For the first time in a long while, Maya felt like her passion for science was something worth pursuing again. Zoe's words, "If you love it, you can do it," stayed with her, a steady mantra in her mind. But even as her heart swelled with hope, the shadow of Mrs. Peterson's words lingered. The next week in class, as Mrs. Peterson began another lecture on the solar system, she glanced over at Maya, as if noticing her renewed interest for the first time. The look in Mrs. Peterson's eyes wasn't one of approval. It was judgment. Her lips twisted slightly, and her gaze lingered on Maya for a moment too long. When she spoke, it was directed at the class in general, but Maya couldn't shake the feeling that it was meant for her. Some people dream of space, others make it a reality. But there's only so much space in this world for dreamers. You have to ask yourself, what are you really capable of? Maya fought to keep her expression neutral, but the weight of the words pressed down on her chest. Mrs. Peterson's bias was undeniable, but Maya knew something now that she hadn't before: she wasn't alone. And for the first time in a long while, the idea of her dream didn't feel like a distant fantasy. It felt real. She turned to Zoe, who was looking back at her with an encouraging smile, and Maya knew then that no matter what, she wasn't going to let anyone, least of all Mrs. Peterson, hold her back. Maya sat in the back of the classroom, her hands pressed against the desk, fingers tapping nervously as Mrs. Peterson explained the next assignment. The air in the room felt thick, the kind of oppressive humidity that made it hard to breathe and even harder to focus. But Maya wasn't about to let that stop her. This project, the one on future career aspirations, was her chance to prove herself, to show Mrs. Peterson once and for all that her dreams of becoming an astronaut were anything but fantastical. She'd heard it all before. You need a backup plan. Space exploration is too competitive for someone like you. It's not realistic. Mrs. Peterson had dismissed her ideas time and time again, making it clear that she didn't believe in Maya's aspirations. But this time, Maya wasn't going to let it slide. This time, she would work harder than ever, make her case so strong that there would be no way for anyone, especially Mrs. Peterson, to ignore it. Over the next few days, Maya threw herself into the project with an intensity she hadn't shown before. She stayed up late, poring over books, articles, and videos, studying astronauts and scientists who had made history in space exploration. She learned about the challenges these pioneers had faced and the sacrifices they had made. But what made her blood run hot with determination were the stories of women and people of color who had broken down barriers in a field that was overwhelmingly white and male. She began with Mae Jemison, the first black woman in space, and continued with Dr. Angela Williams, a scientist at NASA who was currently working on advanced propulsion systems. Maya's mother, Dr. Williams, was her personal inspiration. The world had yet to fully recognize her mother's achievements, but Maya knew the truth. Her mom had worked tirelessly behind the scenes at NASA, playing a pivotal role in shaping the future of space exploration. Maya was determined to show the class, especially Mrs. Peterson, that the future of space wasn't just for a select few, it was for anyone who had the drive, the ambition, and the courage to pursue it. She stayed up well into the night, making her presentation perfect, crafting it so that every word, every fact, every image would deliver the message, "This is my dream, and it's more than just a fantasy." The day of the presentation arrived, and Maya felt a strange mix of anticipation and dread. Her heart raced as she set up her materials in front of the class, the familiar click of the projector cutting through the tension in the room. She glanced over at Mrs. Peterson, who was sitting at her desk, a neutral expression on her face. Maya took a deep breath, remembering all the hours she had put into this. "This is it," she whispered to herself. She clicked the button to start her slideshow. The first image was of the vast, infinite expanse of space, filled with stars and swirling galaxies. The next slide was of Mae Jemison in her NASA spacesuit, standing proud and strong in front of the American flag. Maya's voice came out steady, though her palms were clammy as she began to speak. "Space exploration has always been my dream. Since I was little, I've been fascinated by the stars, the planets, and what lies beyond our Earth. But I don't just want to watch others go into space. I want to be a part of it. I want to make history, just like the many trailblazing scientists and astronauts who came before me." She paused for a moment, watching her classmates, many of whom were paying close attention. Mrs. Peterson, however, was busy scribbling something on her notepad, her eyes not fully on Maya. It wasn't a surprise, but it was still frustrating. "The first person I want to talk about is Mae Jemison. She was the first black woman in space, and not just that, she was a medical doctor, an engineer, and an astronaut. She broke multiple barriers, showing everyone that space exploration is for anyone with the courage to reach for the stars. There's also Dr. Angela Williams, my mother, who is currently a scientist at NASA working on developing new technologies for space travel. She's contributed to the research on propulsion systems, which are crucial for getting to Mars and beyond. Her work is one of the reasons we're even talking about sending humans to Mars." Maya paused, glancing at Mrs. Peterson. The teacher was no longer scribbling. Instead, she was looking at Maya with something approaching curiosity. For a moment, Maya allowed herself a brief flash of satisfaction before moving on. "The truth is," Maya continued, her voice stronger now, "space exploration isn't just about astronauts in spacesuits floating around in zero gravity. It's about people from all walks of life coming together to solve problems, overcome challenges, and push the boundaries of what we know. And it's important that everyone, especially women and people of color, are a part of it. She clicked to the next slide, showing a powerful image of the NASA team that sent the first African American woman, Jeanette Epps, to the International Space Station. The faces in the photo were diverse, a reminder that space exploration was no longer a dream for just a few, it was a future for everyone. Maya finished her presentation with a quote from her mother, "We're all capable of reaching beyond the stars if we're willing to work hard enough." She clicked the projector off and stood still for a moment, her hands trembling slightly. Silence filled the room. Mrs. Peterson, who had been leaning back in her chair with arms crossed, straightened up. Her eyes flicked to Maya's, a flicker of something in them, surprise, perhaps. Or maybe, for the first time, a hint of respect. "Well," Mrs. Peterson said slowly, "I have to admit, that was impressive." Her voice had lost some of its usual edge. She cleared her throat and added, "I didn't realize your mother was involved with NASA." "That's certainly significant." Maya didn't let her guard down. She wasn't about to let Mrs. Peterson's weak acknowledgement distract her from the point she had made. "It's not just significant," Maya replied, her voice firm but calm. "It's proof that the future of space belongs to everyone, not just a select few. It's proof that anyone can be a part of this, no matter where they come from." The room was quiet again, but the energy had shifted. The other students were whispering among themselves, and Maya noticed a few of them giving her nods of approval. Her heart swelled with pride. She had done it. She had stood up, not only for herself but for her dream. Mrs. Peterson, after a long pause, finally spoke. "I think we've all learned something today," she said, though her tone was still tight. "Maybe space exploration is for more than just a handful of people. Maybe the future really does belong to those who are willing to push the limits." Maya didn't wait for the dismissal bell. She gathered her things and walked out of the classroom, head held high. It wasn't about proving Mrs. Peterson wrong anymore. It was about proving to herself that she had the power to chase her dreams, no matter how big they seemed. As she stepped into the hallway, she couldn't help but smile. For the first time, it felt like the universe was wide open, and it was waiting for her to reach out and claim her place among the stars. The room was tense when Maya returned to class the day after her confrontation with Mrs. Peterson. The air felt heavier, as if everyone had been holding their breath since the moment she stood up to the teacher. Maya could feel it in every whisper, in the way her classmates glanced at her, some with admiration, others with mocking smiles. Mrs. Peterson's eyes followed Maya as she entered the classroom, her gaze sharp, but it was the kind of sharpness that came from quiet disdain, not overt aggression. Maya had expected the teacher to be furious, to confront her immediately. But instead, Mrs. Peterson did nothing. She simply continued with the lesson as if Maya hadn't just challenged her authority in front of the whole class. But Maya wasn't fooled. She could feel the weight of the tension building, not just between her and Mrs. Peterson, but in the way the students now viewed her. Some of them looked at her with an almost reverent curiosity, others with disbelief, as if they couldn't quite understand why she'd spoken out. "I can't believe you actually said that to her," said Leela, Maya's friend from the back of the room. Leela was one of the few who had openly supported Maya the day before, though even she looked uneasy now. "I mean, Mrs. Peterson is tough, but you really got under her skin." Maya shrugged, trying to act nonchalant, but inside, her stomach churned. The class was divided, and though Leela had her back, Maya couldn't ignore the way some of the others, especially the popular kids, whispered behind her back, laughing and rolling their eyes. It felt like she was suddenly the subject of a new kind of attention, and it wasn't the kind she'd ever wanted. "Do you think she'll retaliate?" Maya asked, her voice low, her words almost swallowed by the constant murmur of the classroom. Leela shot her a sympathetic glance. "I wouldn't be surprised if she's already plotting her revenge. You know how she is." Sure enough, the tension between Maya and Mrs. Peterson only deepened in the following days. The teacher's comments, once somewhat neutral, became more pointed, dripping with sarcasm and passive-aggressive undertones. Where Maya had once been an eager participant, now she found herself a target for sharp critiques. Her every answer seemed to be met with a disapproving look or an almost dismissive tone. When Maya answered a question correctly in class, Mrs. Peterson gave her a tight smile, but it wasn't a smile of encouragement. It was the kind of smile a person gave when they were trying to hold back a sneer. "Well, Maya," Mrs. Peterson said, her voice smooth but cold, "it's good to see that you can still get things right, despite your emotional outbursts." Maya felt the sting of the words like a slap across her face. She wanted to snap back, to tell Mrs. Peterson that she wouldn't be intimidated, but the classroom felt like a minefield. Every word, every movement was under scrutiny now. Leela noticed her discomfort and gave her a quick, reassuring smile. "Don't let her get to you. You know she's just mad because you called her out." But it didn't make it any easier. Each day, Maya felt the weight of self-doubt pressing down harder on her shoulders. What if she had gone too far? What if she had lost everyone's respect, even Layla's? It was hard to shake the feeling that no matter how much she stood up for herself, she was still walking on shaky ground. But despite the growing tension in the classroom, something inside her shifted. She had spoken her truth, and for the first time, Maya felt the power of her own voice. The realization was a small flame, flickering in her chest, but it was there, and it grew stronger with every passing day. Maya wasn't the kind of person who backed down. She hadn't backed down when the boys at school had mocked her dreams of going to college. She hadn't backed down when Mrs. Peterson had undermined her. She wasn't about to let those voices silence her now. That night, at home, Maya's mother noticed the change in her. Her mother had always been observant, but tonight there was something more tender in her eyes, something that suggested she had seen her daughter grow in ways Maya hadn't noticed herself. "Maya, what's going on with you?" her mother asked, setting down the dishes she was washing. "I can see something's weighing on you." Maya hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. She didn't want to burden her mother with the drama at school. But then she remembered the advice her mom had given her about facing challenges head-on, no matter how difficult. I had another run-in with Mrs. Peterson today," Maya began, her voice small but steady. "I stood up to her yesterday, and now things are worse. She's been different with me. Passive-aggressive. It's like she's trying to make me feel small." Her mother nodded slowly, her face soft with understanding. She set the dish towel down and turned to face her daughter. "That's hard, baby," she said quietly. "But you know, sometimes, people like Mrs. Peterson, people who can't handle seeing someone stand up for themselves, try to put you back in your place. And that's what she's doing. But don't let her make you doubt yourself." Maya felt her mother's words settle deep inside her. She knew what her mom meant. Maya had heard stories of her mother's own struggles, how, as a black woman in a male-dominated field like NASA, she had been overlooked, dismissed, and even ridiculed for her ideas. There were times when Maya's mother had been the only one in the room fighting to be heard. Her mother had faced barriers Maya couldn't even imagine, yet she had still managed to achieve her dreams. I just feel like, maybe I made a mistake, Mom. Like maybe I should have kept my mouth shut. I didn't want to make things harder for myself. Her mother shook her head, her voice firm but gentle. Maya, you're a lot stronger than you think. You've got a fire inside you, just like I did when I started out. You think I didn't face criticism, bias, even outright hate? I did. Every step of the way. But I didn't let it stop me. And you shouldn't either. You've got something special to offer the world, and no one can take that away from you. Maya swallowed, the weight of her mother's words sinking in. She hadn't known just how much her mom had sacrificed, how much she had endured to carve out a place for herself in a world that didn't always want her. The thought of her mother's resilience filled Maya with a quiet strength she hadn't realized was there. You're right, Maya said, her voice gaining confidence. I'm not going to let Mrs. Peterson or anyone else make me feel less than. I want to be just like you, Mom. Strong. Unstoppable. Her mother smiled, a soft, proud smile that made Maya's heart swell. You already are, Maya. And you always have been. As the days went on, Maya carried her mother's words with her. Mrs. Peterson's passive-aggressive remarks no longer stung as much. Maya realized that the teacher's behavior was a reflection of her own insecurities, not Maya's shortcomings. Mrs. Peterson's power could only go so far. Maya had the power to rise above it. The rest of the class seemed to sense it too. Some of the students who had mocked her before now watched her with a newfound respect. Maya had become someone who wasn't afraid to speak up, to stand tall in the face of adversity. It wasn't easy. She still had doubts, still feared the judgments of others, but she was learning to hold her head high. And as Maya walked home from school that afternoon, she found herself feeling lighter. She was ready to face whatever came next, armed not only with her mother's wisdom but with the unwavering belief that no one could define her but herself. The aftermath of the confrontation had shaken things up, but Maya had come through it stronger, more determined than ever to follow her dreams. And nothing, not even Mrs. Peterson, could take that away from her. Maya stood in front of the mirror that morning, staring at her reflection with a hollow feeling in the pit of her stomach. The weight of the last few days had pressed down on her like a heavy fog, unrelenting, suffocating. Her confrontation with Mrs. Peterson had left her raw, questioning not just the teacher's judgment but her own place in the world. Maya had always dreamed of exploring the stars, of becoming an astronaut. But now, that dream seemed more distant than ever, a shimmering light on the horizon that might never reach her. She adjusted the collar of her jacket, trying to shake off the lingering doubts. School was waiting for her, but a part of her wondered if it was all worth it anymore. The hallway was as loud as ever when Maya walked through it, students buzzing with excitement about the upcoming science fair. But none of the chatter seemed to reach her. The words that Mrs. Peterson had said, the doubts she had cast, replayed over and over in her mind. Are you sure this is the right path for you, Maya? Space exploration is a tough field, and it's dominated by people who look a lot more like your classmates than you. Those words stung more than Maya cared to admit. She knew Mrs. Peterson didn't mean them to be cruel. But they felt like a direct blow to her very sense of self-worth. Was the field of space exploration really closed off to her because of her race and gender? Was she doomed to spend her life fighting against invisible barriers? And if she kept pushing forward, what would be left of her when the world still didn't accept her? The thought of giving up, of letting go of her dream, felt foreign. but it was also starting to seem like the only way to stop the constant emotional exhaustion, the feeling of being dismissed before she'd even begun. The day dragged on, a blur of lectures and whispered conversations. Maya didn't feel like she belonged in any of them. The usual faces in her classes felt distant, their laughter and chatter like a language she no longer understood. She was lost in her thoughts when the bell rang, signaling the end of the school day. Without thinking, she headed straight for the one place that always made her feel like herself, the library. It was quieter there, the stillness offering some reprieve from the noise that had been clouding her mind. Maya found an empty table near the back, opening her notebook and flipping through her notes from the last space-related lecture. The pages felt heavier than usual, weighed down by the thoughts of the woman who had questioned her future, of all the other voices that echoed through her mind, whispering doubts. It wasn't long before she heard the soft patter of footsteps approaching. Maya looked up to see Zoe, her best friend, with a friendly grin stretched across her face. "Mind if I sit?" Zoe asked, already dropping her bag onto the chair across from Maya. Maya smiled faintly, grateful for Zoe's presence. "Of course. I need a distraction." Zoe's expression softened, sensing the weight of the conversation before it even started. She leaned forward, her voice quieter now. "You okay?" Maya hesitated, then sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I don't know. I thought I could just keep pushing forward, you know? Like I always have. But now, with Mrs. Peterson and everyone else, I'm starting to wonder if it's all worth it." Zoe raised an eyebrow, clearly not understanding. "What do you mean?" "You've been dreaming of space since you could talk, Maya. Nothing's changed, right?" Maya shook her head, her voice tinged with frustration. "Everything's changed. People are telling me I don't belong in this field, that it's too hard for someone like me. And even when I try to prove them wrong, they just find a way to push me back. Mrs. Peterson, she literally told me that maybe space exploration wasn't the right career for me." Zoe looked genuinely shocked. "What? No way. She said that?" "Yeah," Maya replied quietly. "She said it's dominated by people who look like the other students here. And I'm just supposed to accept that, right?" Zoe didn't answer right away. Instead, she sat back, processing Maya's words. The weight of them hung in the air, and Maya could feel the pressure building in her chest again. After a moment, Zoe leaned forward again, her gaze intense. "That's ridiculous. And I know you know it. You're just as capable as anyone else, more so, actually."